My brother stole my business idea and bragged about outsmarting me, so I built a better company and hired his ex to replace him. I'm a 28-year-old entrepreneur, and I always dreamed of creating something that was mine, completely mine, something that no one could take away or twist into something it wasn't. For years, I've been sketching ideas on napkins, scribbling late at night under the dim glow of my desk lamp, imagining a platform that could actually make people's lives easier while still being scalable. It wasn't just about money for me. It was about proving I could turn my own vision into reality without cutting corners, without leaning on anyone who didn't understand the grind. I remember countless nights hunched over my laptop, fingers raw from typing, eyes stinging from staring at code, and spreadsheets that seemed to stretch on forever. My apartment smelled of stale coffee and burnt popcorn from the few times I forgot to eat. I had drained most of my personal savings into prototypes and research, juggling small freelance gigs just to keep the lights on. Every rejection email from potential investors felt like a punch, but I refused to let it define me. Jake, my younger brother, would usually pop in during these nights. He was all charm and jokes, the kind of guy who could make anyone laugh without even trying. "Still staring at that screen like it owes you money?" he'd tease, flopping onto the couch with a bag of chips. On the surface, he was supportive, asking about my progress, offering helpful ideas. But he never understood the sleepless obsession behind what I was building. I loved him, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he thrived in comfort and avoiding effort, while I clawed for every inch. Tonight, though, there was an unusual calm. I had finally polished the pitch deck, rehearsed every slide, memorized every statistic. Investors would see the vision. They'd see the months of sweat, the nights of sacrifice, the prototype that actually worked. I could feel the energy in my chest, a mix of nerves and excitement. Nothing could derail this. Nothing. Or so I thought. I thought I could trust Jake. I really did. A few weeks before my first investor meeting, I casually showed him my prototype, just to get his opinion. He leaned back in my worn-out office chair, munching on pretzel sticks, grinning like he knew something I didn't. "Man, this is genius," he said, eyes glinting. "Seriously, you're gonna blow them away. If you want, I can help you polish it for the pitch." At first, I felt a flicker of relief. Maybe this time, he was actually here for me, not just cracking jokes or distracting me from deadlines. But something in the way he examined the interface made me uneasy. He asked too many questions about algorithms, user flows, even my funding projections, pressing for details I didn't think mattered yet. "Why does that work that way?" he'd ask, tapping my laptop screen. "Couldn't we just tweak it to do X instead?" I shrugged, trying to stay patient, assuming it was harmless curiosity. I wanted to believe in his support. Still, a small voice in my head nagged at me. Jake had always been clever, too clever sometimes, and I had this weird, sinking feeling he was calculating something behind that playful smirk. I shook it off. It had to be paranoia. After all, he was my brother, family. That night, I stayed up until 3 a.m., revising slides, checking data points, rehearsing every line of my pitch. The apartment was silent, except for the hum of my laptop and the occasional creak of the floorboards. I thought I was alone with my dream, but somewhere in the background, Jake's presence lingered like a shadow I didn't notice. By the time I finally leaned back, exhausted, I told myself I was ready. I could see the investors' reactions in my mind, eyes widening, nods of approval, maybe even offers on the spot. I didn't know it yet, but that casual, helpful glance Jake had given my work would be the first crack in everything I thought was untouchable. I never expected betrayal to come from someone I grew up with, someone I shared bedrooms, holidays, and family dinners with. But that's exactly what happened. A few days before my big investor pitch, I saw it. My idea. Every late night sketch, every painstaking prototype, every single line of code I'd poured my life into, on Jake's laptop screen, sitting in front of a competitor's logo. My stomach dropped, my hands shook, and for a moment, I couldn't even breathe. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to make the world stop, but all I could do was stare. "Jake, what is this?" My voice was a mix of disbelief and rage. He turned, that same smirk plastered on his face, like he'd just won some twisted game. "Relax," he said casually, like I was overreacting. "I just thought they'd do a better job taking it forward. You know, the idea deserves to be seen by the right people." I felt my chest tighten. "The right people? You stole it. This is my work, Jake. Every hour, every sleepless night. It's mine." He shrugged, leaning back, acting nonchalant. "Come on, don't get your feelings hurt. I outsmarted you. Deal with it. Maybe next time. Don't be so predictable. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. I wanted him to feel a fraction of the devastation clawing through me. But I didn't. Not yet. I just felt hollow, like every ounce of trust I had in him had been ripped away. I sank onto my couch, staring at the floor, listening to the quiet hum of my apartment. The air smelled faintly of coffee and dust, but it didn't matter. I couldn't taste or feel anything but betrayal. The world I'd built inside my mind, the careful, fragile structure of my dream, had been shattered by the one person I thought I could rely on. Yet even in that crushing moment, a tiny ember sparked inside me, a fierce, almost frightening determination. He thought he'd won, but he hadn't seen this side of me yet. I would rise, I would rebuild, and somehow, I would make him regret ever underestimating me. After that day, I felt like a ghost in my own life. Every corner of my apartment reminded me of what Jake had stolen, my sketches pinned to the corkboard, the prototype gathering dust on my desk, the half-empty coffee mugs that had fueled late nights. I couldn't focus. Every call from an investor felt like a reminder that my dream had been hijacked, and every notification on my laptop made my heart skip, fearing I'd find more proof of him bragging somewhere online. I tried to reason with myself. Maybe this was just a setback, I told myself. Maybe I could pivot, refine the concept, make it even better. But the anger gnawed at me, sharp and persistent, like a warning I couldn't ignore. Jake had crossed a line, and part of me wanted nothing more than to collapse into despair. That evening, he waltzed into my apartment again, laughing, holding a bag of chips like nothing had happened. "Hey, how's my favorite genius doing? You still working on that little project of yours?" His tone was teasing, but I could feel the smugness dripping from every word. "I'm fine," I said, keeping my voice steady, though my hands were trembling. "Just reorganizing some things." He plopped onto the couch, still grinning. "Well, if you need tips, I'm always here. You know, sharing wisdom and all that." I wanted to throw the bag at him. I wanted to scream until the walls shook. But instead, I nodded politely and turned back to my desk. I could feel my mind racing, 100 plans forming and dissolving in an instant. I couldn't let this defeat define me. I couldn't let him win. Late into the night, I sat with a blank page in front of me, staring at it as if it held the answers. The apartment was silent, except for the occasional rumble of the city outside, lights flickering in windows across the street. And in that quiet, something clicked, a clarity born from betrayal. If Jake thought he could outsmart me, he was gravely mistaken. I would rebuild. I would improve. And when the time came, I would show him exactly what he'd underestimated. I threw myself into rebuilding, like my life depended on it. Because, in a way, it did. Every day started at dawn and didn't end until late at night. My apartment littered with notebooks, sketches, and half-drunk energy drinks. I wasn't just recreating my idea. I was refining it, improving it, making it sharper, faster, more impossible to copy. Every line of code, every design tweak felt like a small victory against Jake and his arrogance. I started reaching out to people I trusted, friends in tech, former colleagues, anyone who could give me insight or feedback. Slowly, I built a small, loyal team who shared my vision, who could see the passion I'd poured into this idea. They didn't care about my brother, about the betrayal, or about the mistakes I'd made in the past. They just believed in what we were building together, and for the first time since discovering Jake's treachery, I felt a flicker of hope. Of course, he didn't stay quiet. I could sense it in the whispers from mutual acquaintances, the occasional smug comment on social media, the way he subtly tried to undermine my credibility whenever we were in the same room. "You know, my company's doing pretty well with that idea," he bragged at a family dinner, laughing like it was a harmless joke. "I guess I just got lucky." Lucky. That word ignited something in me, a cocktail of anger and motivation I couldn't ignore. He had underestimated the fire he'd lit in me. While he relied on charm and shortcuts, I was rebuilding from the ground up, smarter and more resilient than before. By the time I finished the latest prototype, it wasn't just an idea. It was a fully functional, scalable platform that exceeded anything I had imagined. Investors were intrigued, emails started piling in, and I could feel momentum shifting. But even as excitement bubbled inside me, I knew the real challenge wasn't just launching the product, it was facing Jake when the time came. And I also knew I had something brewing that he wouldn't see coming. Watching Jake flounder while I quietly built something better became its own strange satisfaction. His company, the one he'd crowed about for weeks, started showing cracks. Poor execution, missed deadlines, and overconfidence painted a picture I hadn't expected to enjoy so much. Every time I saw him post a smug update online or brag to family about how he'd outsmarted me, I felt my blood boil. But now it was laced with a quiet, calculating patience. I wasn't going to lash out. I was going to let the foundation I'd rebuilt speak for itself. He was still dangerous, though. He tried to poach a couple of my contacts under the guise of networking, making casual jokes about how he could do it better. One evening, he cornered me at a mutual friend's gathering. "So, you're really going through with that launch, huh?" "Good luck beating me," he said, with that infuriating grin, as if he had some invisible edge I couldn't touch. I smiled politely, careful not to show the anger bubbling beneath. The apartment had never felt more like my war room. Late nights became strategic planning sessions, drafting marketing campaigns, refining features, and secretly analyzing every misstep Jake made publicly. I kept a spreadsheet tracking everything: client feedback, investor interest, social engagement. It was meticulous, almost obsessive, but I didn't care. Every piece of data was ammunition. Amid all this, I couldn't ignore the whispers from mutual acquaintances. Jake's own team was frustrated with him. He had charisma, sure, but his recklessness was alienating the people keeping his company afloat. That knowledge was a small thrill, like watching a storm build in the distance. And then came the idea, the quiet, almost cruel plan I hadn't expected to form. I realized there was a way to turn his arrogance against him, not just in business, but in the most personal way possible. I could strike where it would hurt the most, and yet, with perfect precision. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the city lights outside my window, feeling a rush I hadn't felt in months. The next move wasn't just strategic. It was deeply, satisfyingly personal. The plan came to me quietly, like a whisper in the middle of the night. And once I heard it, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Jake had always flaunted his charm, relied on his charisma, and assumed people would forgive his mistakes because he was funny or smart. But everyone has a weakness, and I discovered his ex, the one person who knew all his secrets and had endured his arrogance firsthand. It wasn't about cruelty at first. It was about strategy. She was talented, professional, and brilliant in ways Jake had never truly appreciated. And she was frustrated with him, frustrated with the chaos he'd created, frustrated with being stuck under his shadow. That frustration became my opportunity. I reached out, carefully, cautiously, explaining my vision, the journey I'd been on, and how I valued her skills. Her initial skepticism was palpable. "Why would I even consider working with you?" she asked sharply, but I could hear the undertone, her curiosity, the spark that hadn't been there in months. Meanwhile, Jake's arrogance was growing. He boasted publicly about deals, about clients, about his supposed genius, completely blind to the storm, quietly forming behind the scenes. I watched him make mistake after mistake, posting updates that revealed more about his weaknesses than his strengths. Every careless comment, every slip of strategy became a piece of the puzzle. By the time she agreed to join my team, it wasn't just a victory in logistics, it was personal. She brought insight, honesty, and insider knowledge that Jake had taken for granted. And while I focused on refining the product and attracting investors, she quietly helped me understand the blind spots Jake had relied on for years. Every late night in that apartment, I could feel the momentum shifting. Our combined efforts, her insight, and my relentless drive created a company that wasn't just competitive. It was unstoppable. And somewhere, across town, Jake remained oblivious, convinced he still had the upper hand. The line between business and personal justice was blurring, and the first cracks in Jake's empire were about to appear. Once she joined, everything changed. Having Jake's ex on our team felt like holding a map to a treasure he didn't know existed. She knew his habits, his shortcuts, the way he relied on charm to cover mistakes, and she wasn't afraid to tell me everything. Every detail she shared was like a key turning in a lock, small cracks I could exploit, weaknesses I could strengthen against. She wasn't bitter. She was smart, precise, and focused. And I realized that with her insight, I could not only compete with Jake, I could surpass him in ways he would never anticipate. Jake, oblivious to the shift, continued his reckless streak. He boasted to clients, laughed about deadlines, and assumed loyalty from his team that was already eroding. I watched quietly from the sidelines, analyzing patterns, noticing the mistakes he kept repeating. One night, she told me something that made my stomach drop with both horror and anticipation. "He's going to implode if this keeps up. You just need to give him the right nudge." It was the midpoint twist I hadn't seen coming. She wasn't just helping me catch up. She was giving me the insight to stay 2 steps ahead, to anticipate his moves before he even realized them himself. Every misstep he made was amplified. Every careless word he spoke became a weapon I could use strategically. I spent the following weeks meticulously planning, refining strategies, and improving our product, all while monitoring him. I could see the cracks widening, key team members looking tired and frustrated, clients questioning delays, and his social media boasting backfiring as industry insiders began to notice the chaos. And the most delicious part? He still didn't suspect me. Jake's overconfidence blinded him. He thought he had the upper hand, that charm and arrogance would carry him through. Meanwhile, our company was quietly growing stronger, more reliable, more innovative. Sitting late one night, watching lines of data and analytics pop up on my screen, I leaned back and let myself smile. The kind of small, dangerous smile that comes before a storm. I was in control now, and he was about to learn just how much he had underestimated me. I thought I was prepared for everything, but nothing could have readied me for the nights I spent lying awake, doubting every decision. Launch delays, investor back and forth, and unexpected technical glitches hit all at once. Emails that should have gone smoothly bounced back. Last-minute bugs appeared in the prototype, and one of my key team members fell sick. The exhaustion wasn't just physical, it was mental, gnawing at me with every passing hour. I felt like I was drowning, and for the first time in months, the fire I'd been feeding felt dangerously close to burning out. On top of that, Jake started a quiet smear campaign. Mutual friends called me awkwardly, unsure what to say, hinting at rumors he'd spread about my company being a copy of his work, or flawed from the start. The whispers carried weight because people trusted him, or at least thought they did. I tried to brush it off, but each message, each hesitant call, felt like a punch to the gut. Late one night, sitting in my apartment surrounded by empty coffee cups and scattered notebooks, I felt the crushing weight of it all. I had spent months rebuilding, battling sleepless nights, pouring my savings and energy into this dream, and it felt like it could all collapse, like Jake's shadow had followed me, taunting me even now. I remember staring out at the city skyline, the neon lights reflected in my tired eyes, and feeling completely alone. The world felt heavy, my own ambition a burden. I questioned whether I had the strength to continue, whether the fight was worth it, whether I'd be forever chasing a brother who didn't deserve the title. But amid that despair, a spark of clarity cut through the fog. I wasn't powerless. I had built something stronger than his arrogance. I had a team who believed in the vision, an ex-ally who knew his weaknesses, and a fire that refused to be extinguished. I realized something terrifying for Jake, but empowering for me. He had no idea what was coming next. The day of our official launch felt surreal. Months of sleepless nights, revisions, strategy meetings, and countless cups of bitter coffee had all led to this. I remember standing in the conference room with my team, the prototype humming quietly on the screens, and feeling a pulse of energy that made my heart pound. The city outside was oblivious to the storm I was about to unleash, and for once, that felt like a luxury. Jake had no idea. He was still wrapped up in his arrogance, posting updates online about innovations that were riddled with flaws. He thought he was untouchable, and that overconfidence became the most delicious part of my plan. When investors started trickling into our virtual launch event, their reactions were immediate. Eyes widening, murmurs of excitement, questions fired with genuine curiosity. This was the response I had dreamed of, the validation I had longed for. I could see the disbelief on a few faces when we revealed features that Jake's product couldn't even touch, functionalities he'd bragged about as innovative, now obsolete. And then came the first direct confrontation. Jake, uninvited, but somehow managing to attend under the guise of curiosity, leaned over at the back of the virtual room. "You think this little project of yours can compete with me?" he whispered, smirking. I turned calmly, my voice steady, dripping with the satisfaction he hadn't anticipated. "I don't think, Jake. I know." I let the numbers, the charts, the flawless demo speak for me. He could see the client shifting interest, the investors nodding approval, and the team I'd built outperforming the chaos he'd left in his wake. His expression faltered for the first time. Not anger, not denial, but shock. The kind that hits deep when you realize the person you underestimated is no longer the one trailing behind. By the end of the day, Jake's world had subtly started to unravel. Clients he thought were loyal were already reaching out to us. Social media buzzed with praise, and every post he made only highlighted his missteps. In the days that followed, the shift was undeniable. Our company wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. Investors who had once hesitated were now reaching out with offers. Clients were asking for extended contracts, and the buzz around our launch was spreading faster than I could have imagined. Jake, on the other hand, was crumbling quietly, though he tried to maintain that smug, untouchable facade. But cracks showed everywhere. Missed deadlines, frustrated employees, and a growing realization that charm alone couldn't sustain a business. The most satisfying part? His ex, now firmly on my team, was thriving. She had taken her insider knowledge and turned it into strategy, helping us anticipate every move Jake might make. Every suggestion she gave, every improvement we implemented, was like a silent, precise strike against him. I watched from my desk as she presented ideas to investors and teammates with a confidence that was both inspiring and vindicating. She was proving, silently but powerfully, that she had never been the problem. It had always been him. And Jake? He started noticing, though he refused to admit it. One evening, he cornered me at a networking event, forced casual, almost joking words dripping with venom. "Looks like your little project's catching on," he said, masking frustration with a forced smile. "Don't get too comfortable." I smiled back, calm, measured, almost serene. "I'm not just comfortable," I said. "I'm prepared. And you? Well, you had your chance." It was more than just business now. It was personal vindication, proof that hard work, resilience, and strategy always outshine arrogance and shortcuts. I didn't gloat. I let the results speak. Every client, every investor, every public acknowledgement of our work was a quiet, undeniable rebuttal to the years of belittlement and betrayal. Sitting late that night, reflecting on the chaos and the journey, I realized something. The victory wasn't just in surpassing Jake. It was in reclaiming my confidence, my vision, and my sense of self-worth. And while he struggled to salvage his reputation, I was free to build, grow, and dream even bigger. Looking back now, I can't believe how far I've come. The betrayal, the sleepless nights, the anger and frustration, they all led to this moment. My company isn't just surviving, it's thriving, respected in the industry, and backed by investors who believe in our vision. Jake, once smug and untouchable, is now a cautionary tale in my own story, a reminder of what happens when arrogance outweighs effort. I think about him sometimes, the way he underestimated me, the way he flaunted my ideas as if I didn't exist. But those thoughts no longer sting. They fuel a quiet satisfaction, the kind that comes from knowing you've built something real from the ashes of betrayal. I've learned that victory isn't about revenge in the traditional sense. It's about persistence, focus, and proving yourself in ways the other person can't ignore. His ex, now my trusted team lead, has become an irreplaceable part of this journey. Watching her excel, guiding the company with insights only she could provide, gives me a strange mix of pride and poetic justice. Jake once thought he could control, manipulate, and charm his way through life. He never imagined that someone he dismissed would rise higher than he ever could. I've also learned about boundaries and self-respect. When he eventually tried to reconcile, reaching out with forced apologies and vague promises, I didn't respond. The closure wasn't in hearing him say sorry. It was in the life I'd built despite him, the people I'd inspired, and the resilience I'd discovered in myself. Sitting in my office late one night, the city lights painting long shadows across my walls, I allow myself a quiet smile. The struggle, the betrayal, and the relentless grind were worth it. I'm no longer just an entrepreneur. I'm someone who faced deception head-on and turned it into empowerment. The last lesson? No one can steal your vision unless you let them. And if someone tries, make sure you rise higher than they ever imagined.